Have you ever felt, in the silence of your mind, that you see beyond what the eyes can capture, that your soul perceives nuances that the world insists on hiding, truths that hurt and beauties that only restless hearts can touch? Imagine carrying this vision like a burning flame that illuminates but also burns, a fire that scorches the surface and burns away certainties. This is the condition of free spirits, souls who do not allow themselves to be chained by conventions, who dare to question the comfort of illusions, and who live on the border between light and shadow, between the known and the inexplicable. Carl Jung, the profound explorer of the human soul, dedicated his life to unraveling the mysteries of these exceptional beings. He knew that, for them, life is an intense paradox, an incomparable freedom combined with a burden few can bear. Being a free spirit means carrying the sensitivity to see too much, feel too much, understand too much, while most prefer comfortable blindness. It's living in a constant conflict between the desire to be whole and the threat of isolation. Imagine being in the middle of a crowd, but feeling invisible because your depth doesn't fit in the shallow world around you. Imagine wanting to shout truths that seem to silence you, wanting to show yourself whole, but being met with fear or incomprehension. This video is for you who carry this flame within your chest, for those who feel the restlessness of a soul that is not content with the superficial and yearns for real meaning. Let's uncover together what Jung taught us about the psychology of free spirits, about what it means to be called to this journey of self-knowledge, courage, and above all, freedom. You're about to understand that seeing too much isn't a punishment. It's a revelation, an invitation to embrace your deepest essence, no matter how challenging it may be. Prepare to dive deep, to face your own shadows, and perhaps to find the light that only the awakened soul can reach. Have you ever felt like your mind never quiets, that your thoughts run along invisible paths that no one else seems to notice, that your deepest questions arise in the silence of the night, when everything around you seems to rest, but you remain awake, restless, searching for meaning? This is the territory of free spirits, a solitary and intense journey between the light of consciousness and the hidden shadows of the unconscious. Carl Jung understood that this inner journey is not a simple path. It is a journey through unknown territories where not only our greatest strengths, but also our deepest fears reside. Being a free spirit means being willing to look within, even when what you find is unpleasant or frightening. It means accepting that light is only true when it coexists with shadow, that authenticity is born from confronting the hidden parts of the self. You who are here can recognize this struggle. You feel that there is much more within you than you allow yourself to show, that the surface of everyday life is not enough for your restless soul. It's a paradox. The freedom of the free spirit is also its prison, as it carries the weight of being different, of not fitting in, of questioning what others accept without question. Jung called this the process of individuation, a path that requires courage to shed social masks, to break with inherited patterns, to embrace one's truth, even in the face of the unknown. But this journey is not for the faint of heart. It's a path that challenges comfort, one that can bring doubt, loneliness, and even pain. Therefore, it is essential to find companions on this journey, souls who, like you, seek authenticity and are not afraid of depth. If this quest resonates in your heart, I invite you to subscribe to this channel. Here we explore together the paths of self-knowledge, courage, and inner freedom. Together we can create a space where the voice of the free spirit echoes, where light and shadow are embraced, where the complexity of the soul is celebrated. Don't let the weight of your conscience paralyze you. Use this power to free yourself, to grow, to illuminate your own path and that of others. You are not alone on this journey. Have you ever felt surrounded by voices, but none of them really hear what you have to say? Of being in a crowd, but feeling profoundly alone, as if you were a stranger watching the world through the crack of a door that never quite opens. This is the loneliness that accompanies free spirits, a loneliness that goes far beyond physical emptiness, that settles in the soul, that challenges the human need for belonging and connection. Sarah knew this loneliness well, not the loneliness of being alone, but the loneliness of emotional and intellectual invisibility. She felt that her thoughts, emotions, and worldview were so complex and profound that they rarely found space to express themselves and be understood. Carl Jung devoted much of his work to understanding this loneliness. For him, the free spirit lives in a constant tension between the need to connect with the external world and the irresistible call to turn inward, to the silence of one's own soul. This tension creates a painful distance between being and having to be, between authenticity and social adaptation. The free spirit is often seen as an outsider, someone who doesn't fit into the rules of the social game, who doesn't accept ready-made answers, who challenges the status quo simply by being true to himself. This attitude can be admired, but it can also be misunderstood, generating isolation and rejection. Sarah felt this paradox daily, the freedom to think and feel intensely and the prison of loneliness that this freedom imposes. But Jung shows us that this solitude is actually a sacred space, a fertile field where consciousness expands and where true individuation takes place. It is in solitude that the free spirit finds itself, learns to embrace its shadows and its lights, and builds the foundation for an authenticity that does not depend on external approval. However, this process requires courage and patience, because solitude can be as frightening as it is necessary. It challenges our deepest wounds and invites us to get in touch with what we have been conditioned to deny. Sarah discovered that to survive this loneliness, she needed to cultivate a relationship of love and respect with herself, an internal dialogue that would strengthen and comfort her in moments of helplessness. This self-acceptance is the key to transforming the free spirit's loneliness into a powerful ally, because true freedom is not in escaping solitude, but in learning to inhabit it fully. And so, even in solitude, the free spirit finds a path to connection, not the superficial connection the world offers, but the deep connection with oneself that radiates out into the world in an authentic and transformative way. Have you ever felt the weight of wearing a mask so heavy it seems to drain your life energy? This is the silent reality of free spirits, who, to survive in a world that demands conformity, learn to hide their deepest essence behind a carefully constructed persona. Sarah knew this mask well, the smile that didn't reflect her inner state, the words chosen to please, the emotions suppressed to avoid making others uncomfortable. She knew that to be accepted, she had to conform to a standard, even if it meant temporarily giving up her truth. Carl Jung called this persona the social mask, the disguise necessary for coexistence, but which becomes a prison when we identify too much with it. This double life, between who we are and who we show, creates a deep fatigue, an emotional drain that cannot be resolved with ordinary rest. It is a fatigue of the soul, a silent exhaustion that erodes authenticity. You, hearing these words, may recognize this exhaustion, the constant effort to fit in, to soften your intensity, to contain your restlessness, the fear of showing too much, of being seen as different, of being rejected. But Jung teaches us that this mask, however necessary it may be at times, cannot become our primary identity, because the more we merge with it, the further we move away from our authentic self, the one that pulses, feels, dreams, and suffers. Sarah discovered that the first step to alleviating this fatigue is to recognize the mask, to view it with honesty and compassion, understanding that it's a protection, but also a barrier to true connection. And little by little, learn to relax this mask in safe spaces, with people who embrace your depth without demanding conformity. If you identify with this silent struggle, please enjoy this video. This simple gesture is a recognition of your courage and an invitation for us to create a space where authenticity flourishes, free from the weight of masks. Because the free spirit doesn't have to carry this burden alone. There is strength in shared vulnerability, in the empathy that unites those who seek to live without disguise. And even if the mask is necessary to navigate the world, may it never dim the shine of your true self. There comes a point in the journey of the free spirit when the deep gaze can no longer avoid the hidden parts that inhabit its interior. The shadow, that part of ourselves that we guard with fear, shame, or denial, emerges as an unavoidable invitation to encounter ourselves. Sarah experienced this intense summons, For years, she avoided facing her pain, her fears, and the aspects of herself she deemed unacceptable. But the clarity she possessed brought to the surface the need to embrace everything that is part of her essence, without exception. Carl Jung warned us that the shadow is not an enemy to be fought, but a fundamental aspect of the self to be recognized and integrated. It is in the shadow that resides not only weaknesses and vulnerabilities, but also undeveloped potential, hidden talents, and repressed vital energies. Rejecting the shadow is rejecting an essential part of who we are, perpetuating an internal imbalance that manifests itself in conflicts, anxieties, and difficulties in relationships. On the other hand, embracing the shadow is a revolutionary act of self-love and courage. It means accepting the totality of one's being, allowing light and darkness to coexist in harmony. Sarah, upon beginning this process, felt the discomfort of confrontation, but also the liberation that comes from truth. The shadow once feared became a guide, a source of self-knowledge and renewed strength. Jung called this process individuation, the journey toward integrating the opposites that inhabit us, so that we can be whole and authentic beings. This path is neither linear nor easy. It requires patience, self-compassion, and the willingness to face the less pleasant aspects without getting lost in them. But the fruits of this journey are immense: greater emotional stability, more authentic relationships, and a deep connection with one's own purpose. You who hear these words may feel the call to this encounter, a chance to transform the weight of conscience into wisdom and inner freedom. Accepting the shadow is making room for the true light that lives within you, a light that does not fear internal storms because it knows that they are part of growth. Thus, the free spirit ceases to be a prisoner of masks and fears and becomes master of his own soul, walking with integrity, courage, and depth. Have you ever felt that your sensitivity is like a deep sea, capable of embracing the entire world, its joys, its pains, its silences, that every emotion, every subtle change in the environment, reverberates within you like an uncontrollable wave? Sarah, as a free spirit, experienced this intensity almost physically. She didn't just see what others saw, she felt what others avoided feeling. This heightened sensitivity was both a gift and a burden, a blessing and a challenge that shaped her life experience. Carl Jung observed that individuals living with this emotional depth face constant psychic overload. Sensitivity, when not understood or embraced, can become a source of suffering, leading to exhaustion and isolation. The free spirit, by carrying its own emotions and those of others, becomes a kind of emotional sponge, absorbing pains and joys, anxieties and hopes that are often not even its own. This intense empathy creates a tension between the desire to connect deeply and the fear of getting lost in the sea of other people's feelings. Sarah discovered that this duality required special care. It wasn't enough to give of herself. She needed to set boundaries, learn to distinguish between what was hers and what belonged to the outside world. Jung emphasized the importance of self-care for those with this sensitivity. The ability to protect and preserve oneself is essential for this inner light to continue to shine without being extinguished. Deep sensitivity is not a sign of fragility, but of an intense connection with life in its entirety, with its shadows and its brightness. The challenge is to navigate this ocean without sinking, finding ways to anchor yourself in your own being so that empathy becomes a source of strength, not exhaustion. Sarah learned that the true power of sensitivity lies in its integration, in recognizing that being so deeply affected is an invitation to growth, to a deepening of love and compassion. It is a journey of balance between openness and protection, between surrender and shelter. In this balance, the free spirit finds the freedom to be whole, sensitive, intense, true, without fear of breaking, because it knows that it is in its own fragility that its greatest strength lies. Have you ever felt the weight of carrying a light that doesn't match the darkness around you? Of being the one who questions when everyone accepts, who feels when everyone ignores, who seeks when everyone seems satisfied? Being a free spirit is above all being different, and that difference, however precious it may be, has its price. Sarah experienced this reality firsthand. Her authenticity, which blossomed like a rare flower in arid terrain, aroused admiration, but also fear and rejection. She knew that being true to herself often meant swimming against the current, facing suspicious looks and closed doors. Carl Jung spoke extensively about the courage required for individuation, the process of becoming a whole and unique being. He recognized that this journey is fraught with challenges, especially because society prefers conformity and fears difference. The courage to be different requires facing judgment, misunderstanding, and loneliness. It means resisting the pressure to fit in, to reduce your light to fit into small spaces. Sarah faced these moments of doubt and fear, but discovered that renouncing her own essence brings much greater pain than external rejection. Being authentic is an act of quiet rebellion, an affirmation that your truth is worth more than easy acceptance. This rebellion, however, is not an empty act of defiance, but a profound expression of self-love and respect for one's own path. And you who hear these words, perhaps recognize this internal struggle, the desire to be accepted, and the impulse to be true to yourself. I'd love to hear in the comments what your biggest challenge has been on this journey of authenticity. Share your story, your pain, your triumph. Your voice is a beacon that can illuminate the path of others who, like you, walk between light and shadow. Because deep down, the courage to be different is what makes every free spirit an indispensable flame for collective awakening. There is a silent burden that accompanies those whose souls see beyond, a heightened awareness that captures not only what lies ahead, but also what remains hidden, submerged in the shadows of the world and the psyche. Sarah felt this weight every day. It was as if she carried on her shoulders the responsibility of seeing what many preferred to ignore, the hidden injustices, the unspoken pain, the invisible patterns that drive human behavior. Carl Jung described this expansion of consciousness as an awakening that few experience, and that while bringing clarity, also brings inevitable isolation. Because seeing too much means being in constant disagreement with the illusory surface that most people accept as reality. The free spirit then becomes a navigator between two worlds: the visible world, where rules are clear and relationships are superficial, and the invisible world, where deep forces act and where true meaning is revealed. This transit is exhausting. The conflict between the real and the invisible generates a feeling of displacement, of not belonging, which can manifest as anxiety, melancholy, and even existential crises. Sarah discovered that this expansion of consciousness required a continual learning of balance, knowing when to dive deep and when to anchor herself in everyday reality. Jung warns us that expanded consciousness is not a gift without cost. It requires strength to resist social pressures that seek to simplify, deny, and mask the complexities of existence. This weight of conscience is also a source of wisdom and compassion. Those who see too much understand human frailty, the interconnectedness of all things, and the urgency to seek greater meaning. But this understanding can be lonely, because few are willing to face what lies beyond the veil of everyday life. Sarah realized that to sustain this awareness, it was essential to cultivate practices that strengthened her inner balance: meditation, silence, contact with nature, and the search for deep and true connections. Thus, the weight of conscience ceases to be an immobilizing burden and becomes a compass that guides the free spirit on its journey of authenticity and purpose. Expanded consciousness is not an easy choice, but it is the essence of true freedom, the freedom to see, feel, and be, even when the world chooses to look the other way. Have you ever felt that your life is a constant dance between moments of profound chaos and fleeting periods of harmony? That your being oscillates between the restlessness of searching and the serenity of finding? Sarah knew this dance well. Her restless soul lived in this back and forth, in the tension between the unknown within and the need for stability. This oscillation was not a sign of weakness, but a natural expression of the individuation process, the path Jung described as the journey to becoming whole. To become an individual is to strip away the masks and illusions the world imposes and find one's own voice, one's own rhythm, one's own meaning. But this process is rarely linear or comfortable. Jung emphasized that the process of individuation involves confronting the inner chaos, the fragmented parts, the unhealed wounds, the shadows that resist the light. But it also involves the ability to integrate these parts into a coherent whole, where internal diversity finds balance and authenticity flourishes. Sarah realized that this integration did not mean eliminating tensions, but learning to dance with them, recognizing their function, and embracing their presence as part of the human experience. The life of the free spirit is this delicate dance between turmoil and peace, between uncertainty and confidence, between solitude and connection. Each step of this dance is an invitation to grow, to expand, to embrace the complexity that lives within us. Jung asserted that individuation is the only path to true freedom, not external freedom, but the inner freedom, to be who we truly are, without masks, without compromise. But to achieve this freedom, it takes courage to face chaos and wisdom to find harmony. Sarah learned that even in the most difficult moments, the dance continues, and that every step, even the wrong ones, is part of the movement toward fulfillment. And you who follow this journey may recognize this dance in your own life, the moments of restlessness and the moments of peace, the questions and certainties that come and go. This dance is the mark of the free spirit, the rhythm that pulses in your soul, and the path to self-realization. Getting here isn't just the end of a video, it's the beginning of a profound journey, an encounter with the core of what it means to be a free spirit in a world that often tries to erase us or reduce us to superficiality. You who follow me, who have felt the weight and beauty of seeing beyond appearances, who have carried the loneliness of a sharp gaze, who have learned to dance with inner chaos and seek harmony even in storms, are facing a greater calling, a calling to continue being light in the midst of darkness, to continue living authenticity even when everything seems to conspire against it. Carl Jung left us a powerful legacy. The free soul is not destined to walk in isolation, although this may seem true at times. It is part of an invisible network of awakened consciousnesses, souls that together build a new horizon for humanity. A horizon where truth, depth, and freedom are non-negotiable values. This call is an invitation to courage, the courage to look within and embrace all parts of yourself, the courage to be vulnerable and show your truth, even if it makes you uncomfortable, even if it causes rejection, because the freedom of the free spirit has never been an easy path, but it is the only path that leads to true fulfillment. When you decide to embrace your shadows, celebrate your lights, and embrace the wholeness of your being, you're not just transforming yourself, you're being an agent of transformation for the world. Your every step, your every authentic choice, your every moment of conscious presence reverberates within the collective, helping to heal old wounds and create spaces where others can awaken. This is the burden and the privilege of the soul that sees too much. You carry the responsibility of being a beacon, a voice that never stops, a presence that welcomes and inspires. I want to invite you to continue this journey with me. If this video touched your soul, subscribe to the channel. Here we cultivate a sacred space for reflection, growth, and self-discovery, where every story is respected and every being is welcomed. Like this video to strengthen this network of free spirits who seek more than easy answers, who seek meaning, truth, and depth. And most of all, leave your comment. Tell us what this journey has awakened in you, what challenges you're facing, what light you've managed to ignite. Your voice is a bridge that connects hearts and minds, an indispensable link in building this vibrant community. Feel privileged, because few have the courage to look within and accept what they find. Few have the courage to carry this flame that may seem heavy, but which is the fuel for true freedom. Seeing too much is not a burden to be discarded, but a gift to be cared for and cultivated. Your sensitivity, your profound gaze, your restlessness are the tools this world desperately needs to evolve. The journey of the free spirit is long, sometimes lonely, and full of challenges, but it is also an extraordinary adventure, the adventure of becoming whole, true, and fully alive. Thank you for being here, for opening your heart, for allowing yourself this transformative experience. May your light shine ever brighter, illuminating not only your path, but the path of all who cross your path. May your soul continue to see beyond the veil, seeing the truth that liberates and the love that heals. Welcome to the tribe of free spirits. Here you are seen, heard, and loved exactly as you are, a complex, intense, and magnificent being. The road continues, and the world waits for its light.